Hi everyone, welcome back to Live at Recon 2017 in the Las Vegas Convention Center at the Cushman & Wakefield booth. We're in Central Hall 1339, and if you're in the area in Las Vegas, please come by, check us out. We've got a lot going on, the booth is bustling, lots of meetings taking place, lots happening, so we're really excited to be here. I'm Alana Leffler, Head of Marketing for Retail Services for North America, and with me this morning is Garrick Brown, Head of Retail Research for the Americas. How are you this morning, Garrick?
Great. Well, it's the show is actually really bustling. There's supposed to be about 36,000 people here today, which, when you think about all the challenges that retail is facing, it might be a surprise. But I don't think so, because there's a couple of hot things that are happening. And of course, in the wake of the challenges that are happening, some of the store closures, really one of the hot things that people are looking at is, how do you deal with it? How do you pivot, position your shopping centers to deal with these closures that are happening in the apparel and department store worlds? That really, we're probably in the third or fourth inning of that. It's going to keep coming. And while most of the press and the media has talked about the impact of e-commerce, really, it's been about four factors that's driven that. It's been the rise and acceleration of e-commerce, or really new commerce.
Right.
And when I say new commerce, the way to think of it is this, is that we had the age of pure play e-commerce really until about 2 years ago, when it was these guys like Amazon just kept growing their footprint, accelerating their sales, but they really weren't getting active into the bricks and channel world. We certainly saw mainstream retailers boosting their e-commerce presence and building more warehouses, more capabilities. In the last 2 years, though, it became omnichannel. And what we saw was, it wasn't just about the bricks and mortar guys going online, but we started to see online players going bricks and mortar. So Kate Hudson, Athletics, Hot Concept, Warby Parker, Marine Layer, all of these guys, what they found was, when they went into markets with a physical presence, their online sales actually skyrocketed. So these are embassies of the brand. There's a couple other logistical benefits for these guys to open stores, which is that if consumers return goods to stores, it's cheaper on them on the supply side, but it also gives them a chance to sell consumers more goods. And that's been the last 2 years. Now, new commerce is the next evolution. And what new commerce is about, it is a given now that you are going to be omni-channel. There's only a few categories in retail that will be able to get around this. Otherwise, if you are not omni-channel, you are probably dying. Yeah. And in the new commerce world, it's not going to matter where you make the sale, as long as you make the sale. And it's going to be about getting rid of those silos between online, bricks and mortar, so that we get to the point where those channels don't exist whatsoever for the consumer. And retailers have to really figure out that space, because to a large degree, a lot of them are still siloed. But that's why I see a lot of people talking about today, and then certainly the mall guys and the developers. How do we reposition our centers? If we lose a department store, what can we plug in? And the big talk there is food, beverage, entertainment.
Right. We're seeing a lot more in terms of F&B coming to different malls and different shopping centers. Why don't we talk a little bit more about that and what you're seeing, where that trend's headed?
So, certainly restaurants have been hot for the last few years, but the hottest thing going right now, Foodhalls, by far. And there's a couple of reasons for it. Is that we've seen so much growth from restaurants that saturation issues are popping up in places. Well, if you're an operator and you're looking at the fairly exorbitant costs of, say, setting up a standalone restaurant, let's say in Manhattan, it can be very expensive, but you can go into a food hall because it's smaller space, and not only are you probably going to get better foot traffic right out of the gate, but you get this synergy from all of these other operators with you.
Yeah.
Now, that said, the best projects, they're really tapping into millennial sensibilities. So it's about fresh, organic, farm to fork, locally sourced, authentic. It's almost anti-chain.
Right.
And the thing is, though, is that it's kind of a win-win across the board, because the tenants can get in with a lower investment. Very often it's shorter lease terms, so they're not on the hook for as much. So in a challenging environment where expenses are a big problem for a lot of restaurant operators right now between rents and labor costs. It's a win for them. Developers get a good mix of tenants, and it's one of the few places where a little bit of turnover isn't a bad thing. Like if you had 20 tenants in your food hall and you replace 2 or 3 a year, it actually just keeps it fresh with new concepts coming in.
Right.
But usually we're seeing those developers, they might go into, say, a project in San Francisco, for example, where they're paying $80 a square foot to the actual owner of the building, but they're charging $160 a square foot to their tenants, and they have waiting lists.
So they're able to slice and dice it a little bit and figure out a way that they can profit and benefit from doing that.
And
while also having the local purveyor instead of a national chain, so it might be more attractive to the audience.
In fact, the only challenge that I see is that as we see shopping centers and malls want to embrace this more, a lot of their financial models are about national credit tenants. So they need to be willing to take a little bit more of a chance sometimes with maybe a local concept that doesn't have as deep a track record as, say, a national chain, but 9 times out of 10 it's paying off for these guys. So you're going to see food halls as anchors at malls. I mean, we did a great report, came out at the end of last year. You can find it online. Foodhalls of America. At that time, I was tracking about 120, give or take, food hall projects. The number that are being developed or under construction right now, the market will double in 2 years.
Wow, that's huge.
It is, and what's amazing is this was a big city phenomenon. I am getting calls from people in Boise, in Knoxville, in Omaha. I mean, markets that you do not think of as these big urbane marketplaces, where people are going forward with projects, a lot of it historic building renovation, and they're killing it. And so this movement has legs. Will we eventually probably do it to death? Well, we always do that, right?
That always seems to happen at some point, but then it's on to the next big thing.
Right. But we got a couple years.
It's working.
And I think this is going to be white hot for quite a while. And I think you're going to see an evolution in this space. I think you're going to see food halls evolving to involve more entertainment as well. And I think that these concepts are all kind of up in the air. Where whenever there's a challenging time, the upside is it forces innovation.
Yeah. And millennials love their experiences too, don't they?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the one thing I would caution anyone in the food hall world is don't just take an old food court and start calling it a food hall. You've got to really, really focus on design elements, on a sense of community. And by that, what I mean is having common space that's for arts, entertainment, engaging people. And of course, there's all sorts of other things you can do within that besides entertainment, adding those elements. Craft brewing, for example.
Yes.
We've seen that be like white hot, not only as tenants within food halls, but on their own, which we're going to be releasing a new report on craft brewing in America and its impact on the real estate market in a couple of weeks.
Well, that's exciting. Well, that's a fun topic to be
It was a lot of fun researching it.
Yes. When your job and craft brew collide, it's not a bad thing, huh?
Not a bad thing at all. And what's interesting with the craft brew stuff, again, it ties into that millennial sensibility. So it's about small guys. It's about interacting with the community. It's really about incubator space to some degree for startups. And startups are always where the innovation is. It's not just a tech thing, it's also in retail.
Right.
But a lot of historic buildings being repurposed. And this is something that's impacted not just retail space. In fact, the actual numbers show there's been more industrial space repurposed for craft brewing. Old mills, old breweries certainly, but old dysfunctional, borderline obsolete space that suddenly, those exposed bricks, old manufacturing space that no one had a use for.
Right.
It's all finding new life.
Well, industrial chic is kind of the term and what everybody's loving right now, right? So it makes sense that they would use that type of property.
And you get a double bonus with industrial chic. So not only does it resound with the millennials, it's cheap. it's a relatively cheaper form of design than some of the other finishes that you could be facing if you're a developer or a landlord.
Nice, nice. Well, Garrick, thank you so much for talking about food halls and what's going on with craft brews. And you have a food hall panel coming up today at ICSC at Recon in Westgate Ballroom A, 2:30 Pacific time.
If you can come down, please do. It's going to be phenomenal. We've got a slew of celebrity chefs, developers, you name it. Great panel, and we're going to be addressing the issue of food halls from the position of users, food hall developers, and for landlords and developers. And we're going to be getting into really the dollars and cents and the common sense behind it as well.
Yeah.
But it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're really excited to be there and be a part of that and see what goes on with those guys and hear more about their perspectives. And thank you so much again, and thank you guys for tuning in, and check back throughout the day. We'll be doing more live coverage of ICSC Recon from the Cushman & Wakefield booth. Thanks.
Have a great show.